Hello, today I'm going to be painting this countryside vertical format painting. I'm using Art Studio Pro. Don't worry if you're not using this app. The tips will translate to favorites like Procreate and Photoshop and any other tool you like to use. So don't worry if you don't use this app. It's basically the same. So what I'm trying to do to start off with this piece is to block in the big shapes, and you'll see me experimenting with the shapes and the colors, and you'll see me try a color or a shape and then undo it. What I'm looking for is nice pleasant shapes. They don't have to be overly accurate in this kind of style, but what I'm looking for is a variation of sharp lines, gaps, nice negative space, all that kind of good stuff that makes a composition nice. Now, what you want to avoid is repeating patterns. That's one of the biggest problems that I had when I started painting landscapes, and hopefully I don't fall into that trap here. Sometimes I still do, so it's not that straightforward. It is pretty fundamental to making a nice composition, so let me speak a little bit about that. So if you look from the top, you see the clouds. The left cloud is bigger than the right cloud. It'd be very easy to accidentally make the left cloud the same size as the right cloud and the same shape. Now that goes for pretty much all of it. So as you scan down, the back mountain is slightly different from the front, and so on and so on. Now, a little bit of pattern is okay, but too much and it turns us off for whatever reason. So when you're making these patterns, watch that you don't repeat. And it's human nature to repeat a pattern you like. So it takes quite a bit of practice to break it, or at least realize when you've done it. And so you'll see, I don't really know this for sure, but if you try to make one of these bush shapes, so you see the line of trees, if you're not careful, you will make the same tree over and over and over as it goes from left to right. So be very wary of that, and it might not sound like a big deal, but trust me, it is. And if you look at any of my paintings from 10 years ago, you'll see this pattern problem in many places. So that's one of the biggest lessons early on, is to make sure your shapes are nice. Now, even if you're painting realistically, the shapes still matter. So you see these green mounds, the hills. Now, these would still exist if you wanted to paint realistically, but you'd still need to make sure that the shapes are nice. So composition, regardless of style, is probably the most important thing before everything else. And I try to keep it simple. When I'm talking about composition, I'm not talking about complicated, S patterns and thirds and all that kind of thing. I like to keep things simple, and what that means for me is if you make nice shapes, varying shapes of different sizes, angles, and etc., you'll probably have a fairly decent composition anyway. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but there's a good chance it's going to look a lot better. So I know I've dwelt on composition quite a lot because it is pretty fundamental, because at this point now, you see me painting in some of these flowers up the front. Now, depending on if you've done well with the shapes underneath and at the back, these flowers are going to work or they're not. So without the nice big shapes in the background, these flowers wouldn't work. So These are just fun details you can add after you've got these nice big shapes in. Don't be afraid to go back and fix your shapes if you see the patterns emerging. One great thing about digital painting is we can create everything on a layer. So you can see to my side there I have about 15 layers, and I keep major shapes on one layer just in case I don't like them and I want to change them. And also it makes me be able to change the colors. This is running at 3 times speed, which is not so helpful to see exactly what I'm doing, but sometimes you'll see me flick to the hue saturation adjustment layer. I did just then. Sorry, it's very fast, I know, but I'm changing the colors ever so slightly, so they might not look correct when I'm painting these shapes, but then I'll change the colors of the big shapes and suddenly make them more saturated or less saturated, etc. Now, I have a longer version of this on my Patreon, which is free. You just need to sign up, but you don't have to pay. And I'll put the link in the description. So if you want to see this in real time, which is about 40 minutes long, you'll get more out of it because you'll see exactly what I'm doing without the speed. So hopefully this has been some use. I guess what we take out of it is the big shapes and the composition are the main focus on this kind of painting. So if you liked it, give me a sub and a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.